Good evening, and welcome back to the channel. Lots of people online, a few people online already. Lots of people chatting amongst themselves in the chat. I did name this video just to make sure the volume is all right. With that does sound okay. Yeah, it's fine. I did call this video. Do Celtic have ambition? Do Celtic have ambition? And it's just to generate chat, just to get Celtic fans talking. There is other breaking Celtic news tonight that we need to talk about. The club have released information to the media, the Scottish media. I've not heard nothing direct from any fans, but the club have released information to the media that the Green Brigade members have contacted Celtic to distance themselves from the group. The Celtic claim that members of the Green Brigade have contacted them. That's not what I want to be talking about tonight. Celtic claim that members of the Green Brigade have contacted them to distance themselves from the club as the group attempts to be allowed back into game. Celtic have sent out direct communication to season ticket holders to explain and a further of details why they have banned the Ultras group from both home and away fans. The club have been dismayed by the efforts of the group, and the group are to blame the ban for their support of Palestine. Celtic also tried to explain how there were 276 people who had previously attached themselves to the Green Brigade have now been... What a load of nonsense. There's 300 people being banned, so there's now 276 of that have said we're not in the Green Brigade. They no longer wish to be associated. This is the club at its best. The club is just trying to be divisive with the fans, and I think coming just a couple of days after that horrendous defeat in the Champions League and all the negativity that's came around the defeat, I think it's just... There's going to be no atmosphere this weekend again. Obviously, because the Green Brigade are banned. The boys group have said that they aren't going back until this is sorted out. We knew what happened the last time that there was no atmosphere at the ground. The home fans, and let's be honest here, just aren't creating enough atmosphere out with the group. So let's get to some of the comments first of all, before the comment section blows up between Green Brigade and board nonsense, because I think the board are playing a very dangerous game in public. This stuff should be sorted out behind closed doors. There's no need for Celtic to be airing its dirty laundry in public. That's just my personal opinion. Let's get up to the comments, and I'm going to read all through the comments. We'll catch up. We'll never sell our club for £1. Says ambition to win the league and collect the Champions League money. Forget all about Europe. Celtic did say in their statement, in their financial statement a few months ago, just over a month and a bit ago, they said that, look, the reason that we do keep money in the bank, the reason that we have been banking money, is that Champions League money is not always guaranteed every year. And Celtic as a club have decided to take a big chunk of the money and keep it back. Hence the reason we have 72 million in the bank. So as a club, they're protecting their future because they know that they're not guaranteed 30 million from the Champions League every year. Now, as a business, you can't deny that. You can't say that they're doing anything wrong. But when we sell the likes of our best players every season, and every couple of seasons, to say the least, it does get you asking the question, where does the ambition from the board lie? And that's the only reason I'm asking that. And I'm putting it out there to the fans. I'm putting it out to you viewers that watch the One Celtic Fans View to get your opinion, to just get your honest opinion. James Bentley, he says, hail, hail, boys and girls. Ambition left when Lawwell entered. Who else is Paul McEwen? Stephen has an interesting one entitled Fans Just Embarrassing the Club Because We Get Battered when we play by better players playing better teams. When's your next? Why not have these podcasts when we're doing back-to-back trebles? Right, Stephen, I'm sure there's people probably responded to you, but when you're winning back-to-back trebles and everything, and we're still not achieving in Europe, we do actually have these conversations then. This isn't a new conversation that we've had, that we're having. It's a conversation that even though that we've won all these titles and won all these trebles, we aren't keeping our best players to progress that little bit more in Europe. Slavin says the board can't get much a collective ambition. It is unrealistic to suggest that retaining a few players or changing our wage structure could have developed us into a competitive outfit. That's an interesting one. That is an interesting one. Stephen comes back with it's extremely unrealistic. We've been battered in Europe for years. We can't attract players required to make a dent in Europe. Fans live in cuckoo land. We are a conference team. That's an interesting one from Stephen. I mean, we're all of the views on this channel, and I think it's a platform where there's not many people get to air their views. So I'm happy that we're all getting to do that this evening. Paul says, Paul Evans says, hey, well, everyone. Stephen, mate, what's unrealistic about changing the wage structure? The likes of Jota and Tierney. Well, if you remember, if we didn't accept the bid for Jota, it was actually in Jota's contract. If we turned down any bid for him last summer, that he would automatically go on to £45,000 a week at Celtic. So Celtic did know that we're going to expect some, but then when you're offered the money Jota was offered, you're only doing one thing. Martin Rooney says, looking forward to the show, boys. A community could speak sense. Yeah, well, I try to make it that. It's not, and I'll be honest, it's not a community for everyone. I mean, there's a lot of other channels out there that get a lot more viewers on their lives. Vincent says, hail Celtic from Dublin. Paul Baird is in the house. Patrick Toner, hail Baz and the boys and girls from Belfast. Borders Boy is in the house also. And then Stephen comes back with one player at 50 million, demands 50 grand a week over the length of his contract. That's 30 million deal. We need at least 5 of them. We let Barkas go for absolutely nothing. I think the way forward is obviously buying these £5 million players in and not letting them go for absolutely nothing. Hello from North London, a bit scunnered with Europe. Yeah, we're all a bit scunnered with Europe, Martin, and I think it's a conversation that needs to happen at some point. We need to speak about. We always go into. We had an excellent opportunity. I was speaking to a couple of guys yesterday, and we all looked at the Champions League group at the beginning, and this is guys that go to Champions League games, every single Champions League game, every away game in Europe, and we all thought at the beginning of this we had a chance of finishing third. And I've been saying since before the group started and since before the summer, I said, look, this season should all be about that little bit of improvement so that we could finish third in the table, so that we could drop down and go into Europa and get a good run in Europa. We're not even going to do that, and I don't even think that we're going to get the conference. I think we're out completely by the end of this. I don't think they're going into anything. Anyway, let's get to more comments. Hi from Bedfordshire, says Gareth Gallagate, Melbourne, 5 a.m. in Melbourne. Got to star that one. Thanks for staying up this late, Andrew. Or are you just up early? Or are you been on a complete all-night bender? You'll be up early for work. Helen's in the house. Even boys in the house. Last thing we need is Green Brigade. We need all other fans together. We'll get to that in a moment. What's up, guys? All right, Baz. Hail from McEwen. Pat Maguire is always on form. He is always on form. Martin Rooney comes up the Green Brigade and make an atmosphere. I remember it when it wasn't. Yep. Let me just try for them. Brendan Rodgers needs to take some responsibility for the result on Wednesday night, in my opinion, says Paul. Yeah, I think you're right there, Paul. I think still playing with 2 up front. When we got a man sent off, I think it was the wrong thing to do. It was an absolute nightmare. It was a nightmare, and it was an even worse nightmare having to sit in the home end. Martin Rooney says about the atmosphere. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a second. I'll go through the things that has been said online. Stephen, I'm not going to get into an argument about the Green Brigade. And the Green Brigade aren't hooligans and thugs. They're not. That's Unfortunately, we're all allowed our opinion, but anyway, and Celtic are a Europa League level team. We're not even a Europa League level. Yeah, you're probably right there. You can tell Lawrence has an influence. Yep. Yeah, that's true. Tuesday night. Yep. Who really cares is in house. The board are a disgrace as long as they get their bonuses. You couldn't care less when Lawwell came back. So, yeah, I'm sure I actually penned that one. Lawwell walks in, Ambition walks out. Europa League team, the Champions League. We have an opportunity. The coefficient won't last forever. The coefficient won't last forever, and Celtic will have to go back to then trying to qualify for Europe. And as I said in this morning's video, if I remember back to 2015 when we had a chance to qualify and we would beat Malmo 3-2 at home, and then we all went away, and it was a brilliant trip. I'm sure I was on the day. That was the one and only last time. In fact, it was the last time that I was on a day trip with Celtic. That's how I remember it so well. And we just didn't turn up. We didn't turn up in Malmo then, and we've done it far too consistently. We've been really bad in Europe, and that's, we can't keep on blaming managers, because we've had, since Ronnie Dyler came in and he shepherded the club through a couple of seasons on its way to 9 in a row. Without Ronnie Dyler, we would never have 9 in a row. So let's remember that. Let's not make out that Ronnie Dyler was some unbelievably rubbish manager. And don't say, but anyone could have won at Celtic then, because there was no Sevco in the league. You've still got to beat what's in front of you. But we've had since then, obviously Brendan Rodgers came in. Wasn't that successful first time round in Europe. We then had Neil Lennon, who had a little bit of success in the fact that we beat Lazio away from home. And then we bring in a guy from Australia that no one had heard of. His first season in Europe, you're thinking, okay, we'll give him the season. Second year, we never really, it's continuous. For 20 years now, it's 2023. Since 2003, Celtic have underachieved in Europe. Big time. And we can't keep on blaming managers. We can't keep on blaming players that are coming in and not being good enough. There has to be a strategic way that the club have to look at things to help us progress in Europe. And that's why I'm asking, do the board have that ambition? They obviously have the ambition to try and bring a manager in that they think on paper can take us to that next level. But they then have to back that manager with the right kind of finances. They need to back the manager with players that can take us there. We look back, we're always going to go back to the transfer window this summer, and it's still unbelievable to this day that we brought in 9 players. It's still unbelievable. But no one, I'm going to ask you all, did you think that we really needed to bring in 9 players the last transfer window? Because everyone to a man did not think that we needed so many players to come into the club this summer. We needed some players to come in that were a bit better. If you look at the wages that were probably on those 9 players, if you bring in 2 decent players, that probably covers, those 9 wages. Anyway, I'm just thinking out loud. Let's get back to the comments. More money when we win the league in the next season's Champions League. Do you know what's disappointing is the fact that we only get the money in Scottish football was absolutely terrible. It is absolutely terrible. Stuart Ramsey says, even Baz, a fellow Tims, we haven't moved forward as a club in Europe for years. Exactly. This is not seen by the board. Smacks of comfortable. And keep the status quo. Is the ambition, and we all know that Peter Lawwell came out and said a few years ago, they said the ambition of the club is obviously to dominate Scottish football. To dominate Scottish football is the benchmark. As long as we're winning the league, as long as we're winning titles, as long as we're winning trebles, it's all fine and rosy in the garden. And history books will show that it's been a successful time at the club. Been a really fantastic time at the club. Brilliant, amazing, right? But in Europe, during this successful period, we've been absolutely rank rotten. And it's disappointing. It's disappointing more than anything. Colorado's in the house. What a fantastic evening we're having. Colorado's in the house. And we've also got Melbourne in the house. So use 2 guys. Andrew, what time is it, Mike, in Colorado? And Andrew is in Melbourne, where it was 5 a.m. when he posted. It's fantastic. We are a completely round the world Celtic support. Solberg says happy sitting. Yep, it really cares. Let's get that comment up. I know we're not going to win the Champions League, but we should have a team that can compete in the group stages and not get embarrassed. Not get embarrassed. When you look at some of the results around Europe, it's not just Celtic that's getting embarrassed just now. But yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. Pam says hail hail, and Paul McDuff says hail hail. People bring back the Green Brigade, says David. I'll go through that in a minute. Terrible, we are on top. And it seems that we are pressing the self-destruct button. This isn't something that is new, Jeff. This is something that even under Martin O'Neill, when we got to the Europa Cup final in 2003, even when we got then, everyone said we need to push on. I can remember boys at the game back then saying we need to push on from this, and we didn't. We cut back. We stopped paying out decent transfers for players to come in. We stopped paying the bigger wages, and we went into a sort of, we went in and brought in Gordon Strachan and stuff to try and maintain it and try and bring players through, and then it was all about bringing in project players. That was the beginning of the bringing the project players. Sean McKenna says, I was on over £100 a week in 1972. Watch my heroes on £20 a week. There you go. You must be really old. Just joking, Sean. Paul Baird. I was also in the home end. Paul, were you? I wish I'd known that. Could have caught up. It was a mad day. I caught up with too many people, and it was all nuts. Pat McGuire says, hi, Baz. I think I'm at your front door. Can you put me up for a few months? Say my fiver after me. Pat, you're not at my front door because I've moved that many times. No one knows where my front door is. And if the MI5 are after you, well, I know a few guys that are up in Benidorm just now. They'll put you up. James says, I did say we should have taken the money from Europe and just save us the embarrassment. Geez. Jeff says the problem has transcended players and managers. It's the board's problem in his opinion. I think when you look at it, it can't be ongoing players' faults to a certain extent. I mean, it has to be the quality of the players that we're bringing in. So it is the players on the pitch that are at fault. And it's also the managers that are at fault because it's the managers, the way that we're playing. Everyone was saying, oh, we played fantastic in Europe last year. Ange Postecoglou had us playing some great football, but we never done anything. So, it's about getting that balance. And it's about, at some point in the future, finding a manager that can come in and work to the constraints of Celtic Football Club. Because let's face it, we can't see anything changing really soon. Brendan Rodgers knew the constraints of the football club, and that's why he came back. And he was obviously offered the money. But let's face it, he never came back to. He came back to try and right a wrong, and the way that he was asked to leave, and that's a whole. We've been down that road before. Let's move on. Martin Rooney says, "I think we have something up our sleeve in January. Hopefully, recruiting better." I don't think so, but I'm going to be honest. I'm really starting to think that January could be a worry for me, especially with the noise coming out of London and a lot of London bloggers and everything. A lot of the Spurs mob talking about that they're looking at Kyogo. Boy says the board have no ambition. We will never win in Europe. And let's see this one. Norman says, tongue in cheek, but surely the biggest team in Europe can't afford referees and VARs. Yeah, I know. Not even a Europa spot. We're laughing. We're the laughing stock of Europe. Can't wait to get out of the way. Well, it's not going to be longer. We've only got 2 more games. Once we're into December, that's it. I actually thought we needed about 19 new players, said Pat. Come on. We didn't need 19 new players after the last season. That's 20 million laughable for taking Europe serious. Did we even spend 20 million? I thought it was only about 15 million that we spent at the summer, which was terrible considering the amount of money that we brought into the club. This is the one I'm waiting for. Robert says playing teams that park the bus and don't play. That's the problem. We're not used to playing against good players that attack on a weekly basis. Robert, you're right, and I have been banging on about this, and you know, and mother half isn't really into football, but when I showed her some of the comments from and even people that will comment on my own personal Facebook page saying that, you know, Celtic have been beaten so many times in Europe and you know, it's karma and all the rest of it. And it's, well, Scottish football, teams sit back for 80 minutes. Teams sit back for 90 minutes when they play Celtic, when they play that other mob across the road. And it's, you know, it's not good to watch. It's stifling the game. That's a video. It's a completely other video of that. It's is the SPFL imploding? Is the SPFL imploding? Is the SPFL inadvertently killing itself with the type of managers that clubs are bringing in to try and save themselves? Is the league big enough? Is the 12-league system actually done and dusted and it's past its sell-by date? I think so personally, yes. I think it personally is. We've had years and years now of playing each other 4 times and it gets absolutely, completely boring. And anyone that says anything less, it's just talking nonsense, you know. And people are saying, "Oh, you're going to play Deadwood games." You know, if you bring the likes of Dunfermline up, do you think that the bigger teams in other countries that have bigger leagues, do you think that, you know, when Atletico Madrid went away and played that team that they played before us, who were away down the league, and then they got beat 2-1? They get beat 2-1, but from a team that are way down the bottom of the league. Do you think that they say, "Oh, it's cannon fodder. It's a no-nothing game"? They thought they were going to win that. They thought they were going to win that game, Atletico Madrid, and go top of the league. They didn't. They lost the game against a team that were at the bottom half of the league. So expanding the team, I think, is a way forward for Scottish football to try resurrect itself, because for the better of the game, something needs to change at league level, so that other teams in Scotland can be a bit more competitive and not have to want to sit back and not want to try and protect themselves to be mid-table, not trying to make sure that they're just outside the drop zone and don't get relegated. Because when you get relegated in Scottish football, you get no money. When you get relegated in the English Premiership, you get 120 million balloon payment the first year you go down, and then in England you get another 25 million for another 3 or 4 years. Chris says the board do not care about progress in Europe. They only care about buying young and selling any success on the cheap. Lawwell is the common denominator. And it is interesting that people are now catching on to the fact that Lawwell is the common denominator, because over the last 2 seasons, you've got to remember, Lawwell only came into post on the 1st of January this year. Now, for the 2 seasons before, when the season Ange came in, we spent 30 million. And there was no Peter Lawwell in the building then. So, you know, there has to be something out. Bring back the Bunnet. I'd love to bring back someone a bit like the Bunnet who had a bit of good business sense on him, that knew how to run a proper business and knew how to build a business. Because let's face it, Paul, what the Bunnet did was he came in with a plan. And I think he's been the one and only person that's been at Celtic in the last 30 years that's came in with a plan, stuck to the plan, and seen it to fruition. He came in with a 5-year plan that he was going to come in, build us a stadium. He was going to build the business up, to build the revenue up, you know, get more people in the gate, build it up to a proper business, and then sell it on. He comes in with 5 million and he sells his shares for 40 million. He did what he was going to do. And hats off to him. Hats off to the Bunnet. What? In fact, where's my Bunnet? Is it in here somewhere? No, it's not. Hats off to him. We need someone like that. We need a 5-year plan. We don't need. Why haven't Celtic come out and said, right, when Brendan Rodgers got this 3-year deal, what is the 3-year plan? What is the 3-year plan? This is the type of questions that need to be asked at the AGM. What is the 3-year plan for Celtic? Getting into the Champions League, winning the league, blah, 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 blah. We all know it. You know what they'll say. It is to dominate Scottish football. It's to win the league. It's to try and win trebles. And it's to try to progress in Europe. That's not happening. I want to see on paper exactly, right, what are we going to do season 1? What's the type of transfers we're going to do? What is the progression of the players that we're bringing in? How long are we going to keep the players if we manage to get a squad of players that are actually any good to try and compete in the Champions League? Deadwood has to be shifted. What Deadwood, Martin? We brought in 9 players that are absolutely. Anyway, Neil Doncaster is robbing Scottish football. He's related to the Kellys. Well, that's no surprise. Stuart, let's get a bit of good news. Stuart got his fire stick in, ready for the game on Tuesday. Did you switch off early? Evening, Baz. We need to spend. But will we? That's the thing. It is 8:05 on my clock. I definitely need a new battery. It's been that time since December. Says Pat. There you go, Pat. You need a new battery for your watch. The only way that we compete in Europe is if the club gets bought over by a Middle East consortium. I can't see Dermot Desmond selling his shares anytime soon. His son is now coming in and shadowing him to take over the businesses. Liam says, what's been said about the Green Brigade? Right, I'm going to jump through. There's lots of comments. Sorry if I've missed out your comments. I am going to jump to the more regular comments. Fergus McCarran's a legend. Yes, it was that. The board is becoming a dynasty. Yep, with the Loswells and Desmonds. We had the Kellys and Whites, and we all know what happened. Chris, I think you're pretty much spot on there, and I love that comment, Chris. I'm going to just star that because that's one that I want to come back to before the end. And then a big shout out to a couple of guys from around the world. And remember, tell me in the comments where you are watching this because we are completely around the world. We've got Hail 5 a.m. in Melbourne from Andrew, who's probably left us now because he's probably away at work, and Hail from Colorado is Mike. Right, Baz, I watched it. Not going through that pain again. Yep, I watched it all as well. I watched it all in the home end, and I didn't leave until right after the game. I stayed as long as I could. I stayed till the Celtic players walked off the pitch, and it was a bit disappointing. And it's, I mean, we could talk about. It's the first time that I've been at a Celtic game in Europe, and I've seen as many fans leave before full time. Sean, you're as right. Fergus McCann was as unpopular. The same mindset as the Green Brigade. Fergus McCann was unpopular at his time at Celtic. It was really unpopular. Need to get a new season book. This board at the door. Yep. Right. Let's talk about Paul McDuff's just came in the building. Let's talk about the alleged nonsense that's going on with the Green Brigade and Celtic. Now, Celtic should not have released anything to the media, but in their wisdom, they have. Now, this is Peter Lawwell at his best. I've seen this before over the years with the Green Brigade. Stuff getting leaked from the club. This hasn't come from the Green Brigade, it's come from the club itself. Celtic claim that members of the Green Brigade have contacted them to distance themselves from the group and the attempt to be allowed back into games. They also explain how a number of the 267 people who have previously attached themselves to the Green Brigade have now said they no longer wish to be associated with the Green Brigade. Well, if that's the case, they're going to have to give up their tickets and they're going to have to try and get moved to another section. It will never happen. Ahead of Sunday's match versus Aberdeen, Celtic wishes to provide our season ticket holders with a clear and accurate update on the rationale behind the steps taken by the club. The season ticket status process. As a club, it has already stated that the group and its members are well aware of the steps taken. The suspension has been categorically not imposed as a result of Palestine flags, Celtic saying. This doesn't need to be put out in public. This could have been done all in-house. The club has explained to the group in writing the specific reasons behind for each of the progressive actions taken in relation to the group. And these are based on very real safety concerns resulting in behaviour from the group. Right? There's no need. There is absolutely no need for Celtic to have put out a statement to the media. And that's my own personal thoughts behind it. You never see that team across the road doing this to their ultras group. You don't see them putting out public statements. Celtic are then going to say that there's no been any response by the club from the group to these emails. I don't even want to go on. I don't even want to talk about it. I don't even want to go on about it. I think that the Celtic PLC are completely deflecting away from the situation that has just happened, and they're creating an atmosphere and they're creating a whole load of nonsense before a game this weekend. And it's such a Peter Lawwell thing to do. I'm sorry, but I've seen this before with the group. I mean, I've seen it years ago, and it's nonsense. It is complete nonsense. The board should not be releasing statements to the general Scottish media and adding just logs to the fire. They're just adding it. Anyway, let's get back to James. He says, I think Lawwell putting Rodgers in his place, which is sad for him. The club need to get rid of Lawwell. You got to remember, and this is, people don't like this, the true facts is that Peter Lawwell was the man that pushed Brendan Rodgers out the door because he wanted the 10 million. He wanted the 10 million compensation. Yeah, there we go. The Green Brigade will never get back in. It's political, double standards. The board let the people sing. And let the people sing, so biscuits. But how many people will sing this weekend for the Aberdeen game? Which is a worry for me because we need as much backing, vocal backing as we can get. How long do I reckon they'll be banned for? This will go on. It could go on for about a month. It'll go well on until after the international break. I can't see it happening anytime soon. And I think that Peter Lawwell has always had an agenda. And as long and you've got to remember, the head of security, Lawwell's sidekick, is an ex-policeman. And why he's still at the club, I've no idea. But he's had more than a grudge or two with the Green Brigade over the years. I've no idea how long they'll be banned. They will be banned for at least going well into December. So I just hope that the fans that do go to games can find it in them to back the team as much as they can. And I know all fans do try and back the team. But as we've seen at the last game where there was no Green Brigade and it was like a morgue. It was like a morgue, the singing. Boycott is the answer. No, boycott isn't the answer. There is other ways to get to the board, but a boycott the team, I would never do that. Never. Rodgers has always said he should never have been brought back the second time. Board are to blame. I would like to know who it was that contacted Brendan Rodgers. Was it our glorious owner, who, remember, contacted Brendan the first time round and who brought Brendan to the club? And the last time that he stuck his neck out was to bring Martin O'Neill to the club, and then the next time that he stuck his neck out was to bring Ange Postecoglou to the club. Was he the man that made the shout to bring Brendan back, or was that a Peter Lawwell and PLC shout to bring Peter Lawwell back? Because I don't think we've ever got to the bottom of. I mean, we all remember that Ange Postecoglou put out the video. He said, when I got the phone call, where my agent told me that Celtic were wanting to get in touch, and then it was Desmond that actually called him, and it was he gave him the shout, he gave him the nod, and he said, "Yeah, I'll get onto the board. The job's yours. What do you want?" And he said, "Nothing. I'll bring myself." And Postecoglou was that convinced that his own talents. He said, "No, I don't need to bring anything. I'll just bring myself." And he said, "Right, I'll get the board on it." I'd like to know exactly what happened this time. Was it Dermot Desmond or was it Peter Lawwell? Anyway, this is an interesting one. From David, I know an ex-Fife CID cop in Scotland, bent to the core, found it in Court of Law of Fife, from a good solicitor in front of the sheriff. What was his name? Who was he? Kirkcaldy or Dunfermline? Might have been Glenoffice. Which one was it, David? Just tell me if it was Glenoffice, Kirkcaldy or Dunfermline that he was based. Lawwell would bring back the White and Kellys if there was a profit in it. You've got to remember, Peter Lawwell was actually employed as an accountant by the Whites and Kellys well before the current board set up. He was brought in at Celtic that long ago, which a lot of people don't actually remember. Just support from outside the stadium. No, I'm against boycotting games. we did it back when we were trying to get rid of the old board. We boycotted games and everything then, and I remember those times. You know, it was. There has to be demonstrations, if anything, outside the front of the club. But is it a time for that? No, probably not. Is it time for some kind of action? Well, there has to be, because this is just, it's not good going on. The way that the club's being run is great from a financial point of view, but it has to be said, where is the ambition? Now, it's going to come down to people that go to the AGM. They have to ask this type of question. Pat McGuire said the only person capable of contacting Rangers are Doris Stokes. Yep, because they died. They died. Peter Lawwell nevertheless changed his address because his cars were torched on his driveway. So he switched to silent lunch, changed his address, and came back as an untouchable chairman. Kaiser, you're right. And I don't condone what happened to him. And I do. It was nothing to do with Celtic. I understand it was other business dealings. The reason it was happened. But anyway, Ben Cop, for 5, I work in Edinburgh. Tom Fellman and Kelty way back. Well, there you go. There you go. Won't change. Ferguson McCann, last words, Mr. Kelly. Goodbye. I hope to never see you again. Yeah, and then Mr. Kelly still gets into games at Celtic Park. Still goes into games. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about him. Boycott wouldn't work. The board, yeah, the board's got a season ticket money, so there's no point in banking. What time is it, Baz? Not just going well. Lucky to win the league. We will win the league this year. Lawwell still runs the whole Scottish football. Yes, it does. What's the story with some Celtic fans slagging off the Green Brigade? The same way felt it. Yeah, I think it's completely strange. It is. You never get that lot imploding the way that we do. Anyway, the fans in the stands need to find their voice. They do, Kaiser. The fans in the stands need to find their voice. Don't condone torching his car. Hey, that will get me demonetized. Jesus. Board cost us 10 in a row by downsizing. They're doing it again. Our subs are Forrest and Mikey Johnston. This goes back to the transfer chat. Tomorrow night, we're going to have the normal Friday night live, where we'll talk about the game on Sunday. Yes, we play on Sunday again. It is on Sunday this week, isn't it? Yeah, it's Sunday. We play Aberdeen. And I think it's unbelievable they're playing on a Sunday. It makes it even harder for a lot of the buses that come from Ireland to get back in time. A lot of the ones down south, a lot of the ones from up north. It is, I just hate Sunday games. Give me a 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday any day long. 3:30 on a Sunday. It's all about TV, isn't it? It's all about TV. And the cabinet is all about it said nothing about the club. Eddie Thompson. Well, there you go. There you go, David. There you go. Last one goes to Brownwater. Fergus, the saviour, left Celtic with 40 million in his bank. So his shares and other money to a man who overseen all of this nonsense in the past decade. Fergus McCann came in with a plan. He came in with a plan, and he didn't deny he was going to, he had an exit strategy. And any good businessman, any good businessman worth his salt will buy into a company, he'll buy a company, and he'll have a plan, and he'll have an exit strategy. We had people overstaying with us who built up a company from scratch, and they had an exit strategy. I know many people that have had businesses and that have had perfectly good exit strategies. Fergus McCann did exactly that. He came into the club, he had a plan, he knew from the outset what he wanted to do. He came in straight away and built the new stadium. He wanted to get us back to winning ways. He wanted to make sure that we won the league, and he'd done everything in his powers to do that. He wasn't the best chairman. He wasn't the best owner. There was players like Paolo Di Canio and George Cadet and everything that never seen eye to eye to him and never stayed at Celtic as long as they maybe could have. But they were sold on for profit. And, it was a time where Celtic were going through massive change. And he always had this strategy of that once he got the stadium up, once he got the revenue up, he was going to sell the business. And he did that. And he always said that he was going to sell it to Celtic-minded people, which he did. So for the fact that, you know, Fergus McCann did get booed the season after we sacked Tommy Burns, when, you know, it was a long time ago. But the fact is, over the last 20 years, the people that have been in charge of the club have run it in a manner that has made sure that we're financially secure. Over the last 5 years specifically, we've made quite a lot of money, and we've banked a lot of that money. It now has to be asked, does the board have that a little bit of ambition to take us further forward? That was the whole point of the video tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it. I am cutting it fine tonight because I am going out for dinner. The mother-in-law is here, so it is time for me to head out for dinner this evening. Make sure that you join the live tomorrow night. The live will go on as long as it takes tomorrow night. There'll be no time constraints. No time constraints at all on the video tomorrow night. Fergus left us Henrik, the biggest ever player in the wage. Yes, he did. He left us Henrik Larsson. So he did that. Let's get to the last one. You're going to get the last one, Matty. The board. Why can't we have chit-chat regarding spineless football being shown from them? It's garbage. No fight. Matt, let's get that chat tomorrow night. Let's talk about the team tomorrow night. There'll be no talk about the board tomorrow night. There'll be no talk about the Green Brigade tomorrow night. There'll be no talk about anything to do with politics. We'll be talking about the players on the pitch. We'll be talking about the players that we've got in the team that we could pick. And we'll be talking about the players that are going to have to turn on the style and try and win a game that keeps us 8 points clear at the top of the league. Because if we drop any points tomorrow at Aberdeen, with a fan base that is sticks and stones with each other, that is at loggerheads with each other, that is not all singing from the same hymn sheet, it has to be said, it could be an interesting weekend. On that note, have a fantastic evening, Celtic fans.